can watch it?
I am recording on this computer.
Awesome, awesome. So I know that a lot of members Texas start, the order to shut down everything except extreme emergency. So I know a lot of doctors are very worried. I'm not saying the word panic, but very worried about what to do next. And I can tell you that I got the email and instruction from Drew last week, and it's very simple, very clear. And that's the reason why I'm asking Drew to join us to share with our members what have been discussed so far, what should we go from here, what legal thing to do, and not just listen to people advice on Facebook. It's just so confusing, and not guarantee that's a legal advice. So Drew, can you give everyone a little bit of introduction? Thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. Okay, so we're CPA and advisory firm, business advisory firm that only works with dentists across the country. Dr. Toe invited me to be here because we've been sending out update emails every couple of days surrounding the ever-changing landscape and all the issues surrounding it.
Also a little bit of the virus, not a lot.
We could get you guys to mute yourselves, please, if you don't mind.
Just want to drink after you. Same reason she's not drinking the moonshine.
Yeah, see.
Okay, so it's all right, so I think we've got everybody muted, it looks like. All right, perfect. So ultimately, we've got about 500 dentists nationwide that we work with, and ultimately we're here to just be able to answer questions, concerns, issues as they come about, and really kind of from an open Q&A perspective. I think the topic was dealing with business employees and the coronavirus. So I don't know where you guys are at and what are the things that are most on your minds that you want to talk about, but if you want to type questions into the chat, we can go from there if that sounds okay with you guys. So does anybody have anything going on that they want to ask about specifically?
So Drew, I can go ahead with the first questions.
Sure.
People asking, do I lay off, furlough? What do I do with my team right now? Because payroll is the biggest expense on everyone, P&L sheet.
Yeah, that's a fantastic question. I think the first thing to know there is that the difference between layoff and furlough is semantics, right? And so termination, layoff, and furlough in some way, shape, or form all means the exact same thing. I think the important part to know is that the furlough is generally speaking used in a term where you hear or you think of like the government employees are furloughed, right, for a period of time during government shutdown, meaning that their benefits are still accruing, that their PTO, their paid time off, their vacation, their pension, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Layoff is technically speaking a termination, albeit ideally a temporary termination, but it is technically speaking a termination. And so when you have the thought of I'm going to lay off my employees, you have a period of time that you're laying them off at a set date. You're paying out their PTO, you're paying out their accrued vacation, you're paying out their accrued whatever paid time off is that you call it in your practice based on your employment manual. And then at that point in time, it's paid, they are off your books, quote unquote, as an employee. And we're hoping that ultimately comes down to kind of waives you of any kind of further employment related liabilities for a period of time. Does that make sense?
I like that explanations a lot because right now on a lot of group and, Facebook group especially, people don't understand the difference between furloughs and layoff. And that makes a lot of sense to me. Mm-hmm. So that way when you tell your team, you can be very clear with them what benefit included and what not.
Right. And that's ultimately the difference. It's somewhat semantics, but it is more of when are we accruing benefits? Are we paying out the PTO at a set time? Or are we continuing to allow it to accrue and continuing to allow it based on hours worked, ideally, if your employment manual is set up properly, and then also not paying it out until a future time frame whenever they choose to use it based on their PTO, their choice of using PTO or vacation at that point in time.
So Julie, you have a questions in the chat
Hi, Jeannie.
that, from Dr. Chia Wu. She said that I want to train staff during this downtime, but I don't know what that means with them filing unemployment or being underemployed.
Yeah, and that's a great question. So just as a case-by-case basis, it's going to be related to the state that you're in. Every state's unemployment office has different rules and regulations as to what is the compensation or the hours worked that's allowed for a particular employee while they're filing unemployment. And so there's a certain threshold that's allowed, and then above and beyond that threshold, they're going to be they're going to have their unemployment benefits reduced at that point in time. So there's a lot of offices that have thought about, like, well, we're going to do training, or we're going to do this, we're going to do that. But in the grand scheme of things, there's not an immediate need for it. And the thought process is, we don't know if this is going to be over in a month. We don't know if this is going to be over in 3 months from now. And so the moral of the story comes down to, we need to preserve as much cash as humanly possible to be able to pay our minimum monthly amounts for whatever our overhead is that we can't defer in some way, shape, or form, or we shouldn't defer in some way, shape, or form. And of course, all of this is up to change, here any day now with any kind of new legislation that comes through. But as of right now, today, all we can say is that you could pay them based on a downtime or based on reduced hours. They could file for unemployment. Depending on how many hours you're paying them for, they're probably going to be over the threshold. Somewhere around 2 or 3 hours is probably over the threshold to start having their unemployment benefits reduced. And so you're better off saying, let's lay off employees, basically close the office. If you have, the 2 or 3 emergencies, you might have a week. If you have an assistant come in to help you, if you even need it, the likelihood that you need it is pretty slim. But if you even need it, to come in 2 or 3 times a week for an hour at a time, then you can rotate or alternate your assistants if you have more than one, which most offices have more than one, and not to diminish their unemployment benefits while you're still able to pay them their normal hourly salary or their normal hourly wage for the period of time that they're working in the office helping you with that emergency.
So is that legal to pay them, to let them file for unemployment, and then if they come into work more than that, you pay them 1099? Because that's what I heard. Okay, so that's
no, you don't pay them 1099. You pay them. So let's take it like this. So say you saw patients and the last day was on Thursday, right? And then you've laid them off now, and so they've been laid off officially on Thursday, the 19th of March, right? So Thursday, the 19th of March, they're laid off. And so if somebody comes in this week to see a patient with you for an hour, then you would pay them through payroll their normal hourly wage, exactly like you would otherwise. And then it's on them, it's on the employee to report to the employment security, the Department of Labor, not Department of Labor, it's to the Office of Unemployment, if you will, in your state. It's on them when they do their weekly report, because they have to report every single week that they're still wanting to collect unemployment and that they haven't worked, or they have worked, and here's how much they worked and here's how much they earned every single week.
Yeah. Anyone have questions about
I have a question.
employee right now?
So this is Cami Berlin.
Hi,
Hi,
Cami.
everybody. So I have a question. I have some staff that doesn't have any PTO or any sick days left, and I have some, their year just renew in February, and they have 2 weeks vacation and 1 week of sick day. How do I pay them? Do I include all of that in the last payroll from last week, or how do I keep the payroll going until their days are over? How do I include that?
It's a great question. How are you treating it? Are you treating it as a layoff? Are you treating it as a furlough, or are you just not treating it as anything and people are just not working hours?
So we were supposed supposed to have till the day for
and then any PTO balance they have that's outstanding at that point in time that you do the layoff should be paid out at that point in time. So say that they have 20 hours of PTO and 4 hours of holiday and whatever else that may be, that should be paid out to them at the point in time where you do the layoff, because that is a termination effectively. Make sense?
Cami?
Yes, it does. Is
Okay.
it okay if I include it in their next payroll, or I have to run a different payroll date?
No, you could, so their next, so their state by state, technically speaking, has different termination clauses. Like the state of California, theoretically speaking, when you terminate an employee, you're supposed to give them a check, like as you hand them the termination notice, right? And so every state is grossly different. But I think in most cases, what you'll find is that as long as you're providing the accrued PTO or the PTO due to them at the point in time in which you do the final payroll, most people are not, especially in this situation where it's not a hostile termination, right? You're not terminating them because they're bad at their job. You're terminating them because of the economic downturn, effectively. So in that case, it's a matter of most people are not going to be overly critical at the point in time when they get their last paycheck, as long as it's within a reasonable amount of time.
Cami, Julie's also
Great, thank you so
our
much.
Profit First CPA, so that's the one that I connect you. I know that you've been asking for his contact, so you got to meet him right now.
Oh, perfect. Thank you so much.
Dr. Cami is a fan
definitely-
of Profit First, so she's been looking for CPA firm that understand the concept.
Oh, very good.
Yes.
Awesome.
Yeah. Any other questions
We do.
about employees right now?
I heard that in California, you don't have to fire them. You can just suspend them.
You can do that anywhere. So that's not state by state basis. Ultimately, that's a matter of your personal preference on what you want to do and what you're trying to accomplish. What we're recommending to our client base on a global scale, everybody, all of our clients, is to, our baseline recommendation is to lay off team members. And the reason why is that we're hoping, we don't know for sure, but we're hoping that even if dentistry is not excluded specifically from the Family First Coronavirus Response Act provisions for paid sick leave and for emergency FMLA, that if you laid off your employees at a period of time prior to April 2nd, when it goes into effect, those provisions are not going to be applicable to you, even if it's applicable to dentistry. It very well may be that dentistry is completely and totally exempt from those provisions anyway, but it remains to be seen. We don't know for sure. We're still waiting on specific guidance from the Treasury and from the Department of Labor.
Because if I pay them off on all the sick leave accumulated up to this point, or vacation accumulated up to this point, that will reduce their unemployment benefit.
So fantastic question. If you lay them off, you have to pay out their unemployment benefits at that point in time that you lay them off, because it's the same as a termination, right?
Yeah.
You can fire them because they suck at their job, or you can lay them off because it's an economic downturn.
Mhm.
Really is no difference economically.
No, but if versus suspension, because if I suspend their work, their accumulated sick leave and accumulated vacation hours still stay with them.
Correct.
To use later.
Correct. So a furlough, right? Or a
Yes.
suspension, or just we don't have hours, so you're not going to come into work. We're not talking about it, so we're not going to call it something. You know, we're calling it a furlough, or we're not calling it anything. You're just not showing up, and we're not paying you ultimately. And so in that case, that is, a furlough, or just not calling it anything, but we're not paying you because you're not showing up, that you're right. You're 100% correct. You don't have to pay out their sick pay or their PTO or their vacation time or anything else. It's a matter of, at that point in time, you don't have you can't mandate they take it, and you don't have to mandate that you're going to pay it all out. It can just, you can let it ride, so to speak, for a while. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it does. It does. Thank you.
Perfect. What else you guys got?
Any other question for Drew about employee?
Teresa Scott says it's call dropped in explaining furlough versus layoff. And I think that just for Teresa, just so you know, when it comes down to push comes to shove, they're similar in that they're both temporary. But furlough would be that they're still your employees, they're still your responsibility as an employer. A layoff would be they're no longer your employee, they're no longer your responsibility as an employer. We're recommending to our client base to lay off their team members as soon as possible.
Okay. You got it, Teresa? Okay. So the next questions would be, Drew, you're recommending the clients to trim lean and mean mode, pretty much trim anything that unnecessary to reserve your cash.
Yep, absolutely. And so go to your banks and ask for deferrals on your principal and interest payments, your loan payments. We're seeing anywhere from 60 to 90-day deferments. Go to your landlord, ask if you can get a deferment there. They may or may not give it to you. It's very hit or miss. Go to your credit card companies and ask for deferments there. Look at your profit and loss expenses, demand for, smile reminder, those types of things. Like, what is it that we can pause for a period of time? Look at your marketing. What is it that every day or every month is a new marketing dollar spend? What can I pause there? So Facebook ads, Google ads, et cetera, et cetera. So really, in the grand scheme of things, you look at 4 weeks from now, you might have one less dental supply bill to catch up. You might have one lab bill to catch up, whatever it may be from there. And then really, at that point in time, you should be down to pretty minimal amounts of monthly cash burn, ultimately.
Okay. There's a question, Drew, in the chat. Can you pay partial PTO or Wells days if that's what your employee wants?
Fantastic question. I think that goes back to whether or not they're still your employee or not. And so if you've laid them off, they're no longer your employee. You have to pay them all out. But if you furloughed them, or if you're taking the stance of we're just not talking about it, we're just letting the issue slide by, then in that case, and if a team member wants 36 hours paid out of PTO this week, then you pay out their 36 hours this week and you move on to life.
Okay. Awesome. And what are the things that we should do at this time beside discussing with the employee, decide furlough, laid off, or terminations, and then cut the expenses? What else do we do at this time to really increase, at least have the cash flow going, like take out a line of credit?
Yeah, line of credit. So a lot of our clients are asking for additional line of credit. They're, of course, I already mentioned they're deferring their existing commercial loans. We're looking into the SBA programs, whether that's going to make sense or not. Currently, there's the CARES Act that's being debated on the Senate floor right now. We don't know for sure what that's going to look like when it finally gets through both the Senate, the House, and then signed into law. So that's likely going to have some impact on any decision that you make today. Likely that's going to change once that's law, which could have some loans and small business stimulant, et cetera, in there. But we'll see what happens there. I think that the key point is to act sooner than later, especially when it comes to your team members. Get them filing for unemployment, get them into the system, and to help with offset that expense as much as humanly possible. April 2nd is an important date for you guys as business owners, because April 2nd is the date and time in which the Family First Coronavirus Response Act goes into effect. And under that, there's the emergency paid sick leave, and there's the emergency FMLA that are both as a part of that. And based on that, we don't know for sure whether dentistry is going to be covered or whether it's going to be an excluded occupation or excluded business type. But we have to know before, ideally, hopefully, the Department of Labor or the Treasury lets us know ahead of time whether or not dentistry is going to be included or excluded, because that's going to be a big planning difference, a big change between the two types of between the two answers, and how you guys plan for for the future, for the next 12 weeks afterwards.
For many of us, can you talk about, I know that it's already been passed and it's going to be, the law on April 2nd. Are we paying responsible for at least 2 weeks, 80 hours?
Yeah, that's a fantastic question. And so that goes back to, we don't know for sure whether dentistry is included or excluded, and it's unknown at this point in time. And so there's 2 points, there's 2 items in which could exclude dentistry. It may be that based on the fact that dentists are healthcare providers, they may be excluded, and also based on the fact that dental offices largely are employers of less than 50 and would suffer or would have a hardship, an economic hardship, if they were to have to pay out based on being the business size they are in their cash flow. So a dental office can't survive with half of their team members gone for 12 weeks. That's not possible.
Yeah. So let's prepare for the worst case scenario. If we are included in that act and we have to follow, what are we had to prepare for to pay for?
Yeah, that's a great question. And that could be, if today where you're included in the act, you're going to have to prepare for anybody who has the worst case scenario, anybody who has a child at home because the schools are closed due to the coronavirus. Anybody who has a child at home because the schools are closed, you're going to have to pay them 2/3 of their normal earnings. And when you pay them 2/3 of their normal earnings for a 12-week period, you're going to be able to recoup that eventually in a refundable tax credit when your quarterly payroll tax return is filed in July. But it may be 3 months before you get the refund. Just the speed of the IRS. You never know what the speed of the IRS is going to be. So ultimately, I would say that your normal team member salary of all team members who have children at home multiplied by 2/3 is what you're at risk for needing to pay out over the next 12 weeks. And then based on that amount of salary is what you will get back in a dollar for dollar refundable credit. So you'll get the money back eventually. It's just a matter of when you get the money back.
When you get the money back and how you're going to pay them.
It may be 6 months, maybe 6 months from now, 3 months afterwards. You guys have probably all had tax refunds at one point in time in your career or not, right? And so you think back to when you filed your return based on when you got your tax refund back. May have been 30 days, may have been 60, may have been 90 days later. So ultimately, same thing holds true. Eventually, you'll get it back in a refundable tax credit, but it's a matter of when that is.
Yeah. This is Dawn Ewan. Can you hear me?
Yes.
ma'am.
Okay. I had heard that you needed to leave your patients' names on the schedule to prove loss and not reschedule those patients sometime in the future. Can you expand on that?
So what I imagine somebody would have been talking about there would have been to approved loss of lost revenue or lost income. And that's probably could be one of 2 things. Could be that somebody's thinking that they have business interruption insurance where they have a loss of income, or 2, they're hopeful that eventually the government will say, well, we have a disruption in business, and so therefore we're going to give you dollars based on your disruption in business. Most, if not all, business interruption policies specifically exclude pandemics. And so I think you guys you're kind of out of luck there. And so I wouldn't worry about that. And the thought process that the government would then supplement business income loss for every small business out there would be next to impossible. So I don't imagine that's going to be the case either. And so just from a theoretical standpoint, if you were to have to say, here's my business income and my business income loss for the last 90 days, you take an average of the last 12 months, 18 months, 24 months before that, and you'd say, this is what my business was doing on average. So this is probably what I missed out on. So there's definitely no need to do that, to go through that.
Okay.
Because I think when you typically speaking, when you remove a patient from the practice management software and you reschedule them, what do you do then? What's your typical procedure there?
Dr. Don, he asking you questions.
So, I'm sorry, I was trying to unmute. Say it again. So
When you-
I
When you
apologize.
Yeah, you're fine. When you remove a patient from the schedule and you need to reschedule them, what do you typically do? Do you break the appointment, you cancel the appointment, you move it to another day or whatever that may be? What do you typically do?
Typically, we move it to another day.
Yeah.
But then that doesn't show any loss of income.
Yeah.
It's just switched. And so I had heard it was better to leave their name on the book. We don't know when we can reschedule them anyway.
Yeah,
So
yeah, that's true.
that just leaves a list of people that need to be contacted.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And so best case scenario at this point in time, people are moving those appointments into the future, 2 or 3 weeks, whatever, ahead of time, anticipating they're going to be back open. But the reality is that there is a distinct possibility they're going to have to move them again. And so I would not, there's no need to leave them there to create extra work and extra chaos in the practice management software. I would definitely go ahead and move them forward.
And I don't want to be a doomsdayer, but I do have a sister that's in the FBI who is making the comment that does make sense once you pay attention, that the FBI is anticipating this go on for a several month period, proof positive by the fact that they moved the April 15th tax day to July.
Yeah, I mean, and I think that makes a lot of sense. Honestly, I think when you look at a lot of models anyway, they're going into June, into July. You look at state of Washington, state of Oregon, they're closing down dentistry from a temporary perspective, not due to the virus itself, but due to supply chain management through middle of June. And so it would not surprise me if most of the states do not follow suit in some form of more lengthy official shutdown, just because they're concerned with the number of hospital beds that they have in play. They're also concerned with, we don't have enough masks and gowns and gloves for frontline responders to be able to help people. And so if dentistry gets shut down for a period of time, more likely than not, it's going to be because of supply chain management.
Okay. So Drew, I know that most of us are employee within our practice. So you recommend us stop paying ourselves so we can save on that payroll taxes, right?
Absolutely, yeah. Stop paying yourself immediately. Just take any money that you need out via a distribution, right, or a draw, as opposed to through payroll.
Okay. Anyone else have questions for Drew about employees, cash flow, accounting practices right now?
And just so you guys know, we're sending out messages on a regular basis to keep people up to date and keep people informed. And so I set up a form for you guys, like, to get onto our mailing list, to be able to quickly get, like, we're about to send out a really long, here's an immediate how to or what to do over the next week. In the chat, I just shared a form with you, a link to sign up to a form. It's just give me your email and your name. That way we know where to come from. I've tagged it to this, your group here. That way we know exactly what group of people it is. We'll add you to our, this is a client. Typically speaking, Dr. Katie and I have had a conversation about Profit First in the past. And so she's on our email list because of being somebody in the industry. It's somebody who we've spoken to in the past. So the same thing, if you guys want updates, the same email updates that Dr. Katie is getting, just fill out that form there that's in our chat, and we'll make sure that you're getting the updates as well.
Yes, Drew, I would like for the Academy to be able to post some of the points that you made about the fact that it's best for you to lay off your employees for right now rather than furlough them. And if they need additional reasons why, maybe they should tag in and listen to this posting. Just like not a teaser, I don't want to say that, but something that will entice them to come back and listen through this.
Yeah, I mean, I think that if you were to, if you fill out our form, you're going to get the most recent email that's going to go out tonight still on this matter. That's going to, here's your next steps, the things that we're recommending right away to put into place. And if you want to forward that on to your user base and include the Zoom recording from today, hopefully people would find value in that.
And, we're also looking for helpful hints as far as, and I know Katie had shared this before, no disrespect to a CPA, but maybe you might have to look at someone doing your QuickBooks for you that is more a bookkeeper, and then save your CPA for, reviewing all of that and doing your quarterly taxes, doing things like, I think Katie suggested, bringing the team together and saying, maybe we don't need our cleaning crew for the next 6 months, and we can pull together and clean our own office. Do you have any other helpful tips that we could use to at least think about ways to save a few pennies here and there?
Yeah, I think it comes down to when you start to look at your software subscription services and what you're going to need over the next 30 days. Most of them have the ability to pause it for a period of time. Look there. I mean, it's $200 here, $300 there of things that you're not going to necessarily need for the next 30 days. I think that's your cleaning crew, right? You're not going to need them while you're shut down, so definitely call them. Make sure they're not going to show up. While you're stuck in your house, consider your lawn care people. Like if you really need them to mow your lawn, or if you don't care about the 7-inch grass that you have, growing at that point in time, tomatoes. It's just a matter of just get creative and think about what is it that really matters to you, and what is it that's really necessary in order to keep the business running.
Yeah. There's a few questions on the chat, Drew. Can you look at that? She said that, this question may have been explained already, but if you can repeat it, my stat 5 for unemployment last Tuesday, is anything else I have to do?
Yeah, that's a fantastic question. No, there's nothing else that you have to do at this point in time. Ultimately, once the team files for unemployment, they file themselves, right, for their own unemployment. There's nothing you have to do as an employer on the backside. You're going to receive a notice that the team filed, a letter or a document in the mail from the Department of Unemployment, from your state specifically, that's going to say, hey, team member XYZ filed for unemployment, and do you dispute it? Is there a reason to dispute it, or are you okay with them filing? In most cases at this point in time, obviously we're not seeing a lot of dispute with people disputing unemployment claims.
Yeah.
So no, nothing else for you to do at this point in time.
And Cami have questions about, do we cancel payroll for a few months? And Cami, payroll, you mean for yourself or for your team?
For everybody. Like, I know that I pay a specific amount, like $40 or $80 per month. I don't even remember exactly how much, to be able to run payroll. If we don't run payroll, I don't know, are they still charging? I'm going to contact them and see, but.
Yeah, that's a fantastic question. So in that case, in your professional services, what you'll find is a lot of times there's the entire year's worth of information or year's worth of services baked into a certain amount. And so even though they're charging you $40 per pay period, they're also typically speaking, including your quarterly returns, your W-2s, your year-end returns, et cetera, and that. And so the challenge that you would have is that you cancel it, you lose that information, and then that means you're going to be the one that has to file your quarterly returns and asking for your payroll tax refunds or whatever that may be. And even trust me, from a CPA, like I don't even want to do that myself. So we have experts in our office that do that for me. That way I don't have to look at it and think about it myself. So
yeah.
So I would be very cautious as to what you are canceling and really think about some of the ramifications. Like I say, like Revenue Well or Sesame or Demand Force, but maybe you have a need to send an email to all of your team members, to all of your patient base, letting them know you're closed for a period of time. So if you cancel one of those software subscriptions, like how are you going to do that? Like how are you going to be able to send an email out? You could export all of your information out of your practice management software, and you could into an Excel file, copy all the email addresses and throw it into a BCC line, right, into your Gmail account. You just have to think about how is it that I'm going to get this solved.
Yeah. Follow up on Drew advice. I would say everyone have their office credit cards, have their expenses. You would just go through item after item every month and see, do I need this? Can I cancel this? For example, we cancel Spotify and Pandora today.
There you
That's
go.
it.
Netflix.
Hulu for the
right?
office. If you
You
close
don't
down,
need,
you don't need Netflix and Hulu unless you watch it at home. So
right.
a lot of things just add up, and it's recurrent. It's auto pay, so you don't think about it. But if you go through your item on your statement every month, and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm paying $24 for this and $12 for that, and it does add up.
Correct.
Okay, and Drew, let me make sure that I'm really clear. A dental assistant comes in for an emergency, and let's say you end up seeing this patient that had an all-on-4 fall off and break, and so you're there all day. Now, do you pay this person contract labor?
No, you'd pay them their normal hourly rate through payroll. As an employee, they're just coming in because they're there for less hours.
But you already terminated them. You laid them off.
You laid them off, right? But if you need them to come in for help with an emergency situation, right, you can absolutely have them come in on a on a part-time basis. There's nothing wrong with that whatsoever. It's
And
not
that doesn't interfere with their unemployment.
No, well, it could. They're going to have to report the hours that they work, and they're going to have to report the pay that they earned in the week following. Whenever they have to report every single week. Are they still looking for employment? Have they worked any hours? How much have they been paid? And then that's where the determination of how much unemployment they're going to earn for that week is. It could impact it, but ultimately it's a matter of, which one are they going to get paid more? Are they going to get paid more because they actually went into work, or are they going to get paid more because they're filing for unemployment?
Okay. I mean, honestly, for those of you that are still insurance-based, this would be the time that you say cash only.
Yes.
Maybe, yeah, that very well may be. I mean, I think that in reality, you look at the basis of having a emergent only situation, like, Dr. Katie, how many emergencies do you have in a week? 3, 4, maybe, right? I mean, we're talking about like, most doctors are hanging out at home, and if they get an emergency, they're like, how bad is it really? Can I call you in antibiotics? If that doesn't work, then okay, I'll meet you at the office tomorrow at 2 p.m. along with the one tomorrow morning that's going to inevitably call me, and you double stack them, and you move on with life. So
I guess my point was more, I don't do insurance, but then I don't have staff that I have to pay to do the insurance. So it's a good excuse at this moment in time to say, hey, you know what? I don't have anybody to file the insurance for you.
Dentists have time right now. Like
yeah, amen to that, right? Unfortunately, that's yeah. I can let me put my calendar link in here too.
Okay, perfect. Dr. Donna, you back? Let me call her.
Yes, I'm back.
Okay.
My computer cut me off, so I guess that was a sign from God telling me to shut up.
Oh, come on now. He's not that mean. No.
Dr. Don, can you finish your questions?
Yeah, I think it wasn't so much a question as a comment that, I don't accept insurance. I don't have anybody to fill out an insurance form. And so for those of you that are always asked the question, how do I make the transition from being insurance driven to being a fee for service? You have an excellent opportunity to say, I'm not going up on my fees like I need to because I don't have the number of staff that I had before. Therefore, we're a fee for service office now, and I'm sorry, I can't afford to fill out your insurance. It's an option. I was just making a comment.
Thank you, Drew. Anyone else have question for Drew?
I would like his information because I do really want to implement the
Probably first. I know.
Yeah, not a
Drew
problem.
been like super patient. Like, you know, every time we set a meeting is I'm too crazy busy. So I'm sure this is a good time for set all that meeting up and being productive and not sitting there or, you know, thinking negative about the practice, and try to set everything up so we can come back stronger.
We can make lemonade out of lemons, right?
Our team been cleaning the office and do all this stuff, and we try to keep everyone on a positive note. And believe it or not, they actually want to be at work even though we don't see patient. They still call on. So what our team today is, they call on like 20 pages of unpaid claims that we never have time to touch. So
Yeah.
we actually have money come in without even seeing patients.
Amazing, huh?
Yeah.
Clean up that AR, that insurance AR.
That's number one goal, is how to bring the money in while you don't have patients. But then insurance owe us a lot of money, right? Or even patient owed us a lot of money and they didn't get a chance to pay. So we didn't follow up on that. And I think that's number one, is focus on the AR collections.
Yeah. The is there an email, Dr. Katie, if I send you this link to be able to sign up for the
schedule?
coronavirus email updates, would you
Yes.
mind forwarding it out? I'm just looking at it. It doesn't look like anybody is signed up yet or not. So I don't, you know, so
I
just
did.
everybody has the option. So
Can everyone click on the link the link that Drew put on the chat, and then sign up with your name and your emails on there, please?
Drew, you should see mine on there. So if it's not there, there's something wrong.
And Dr. Dawn, can
Roger
you
that.
have Lisa to
Roger
send
that,
out
Roger
the
that.
link also to all the rest of our members?
Yes,
I know
if you
there's a
if
short
you
notice.
send it to me in an email so that I can send it to her.
Okay.
Yes,
Can
ma'am.
you type the email in the chat, or can you tell Drew right now your email?
Oh, sure, I can type it in the chat. So let's go over here.
Perfect. Teresa, any questions from your end? Teresa, Drew is our president of IABDM. And
Perfect.
Teresa, can you hear us?
Sorry, this thing kept cutting me off. I'm like, I can't even like figure out how to get the thing to go on speaker again. So
Okay.
yes, hi.
Okay, Teresa, don't enter your email into the forum. Like, click on the link that Drew sent everybody.
Oh, okay.
You can subscribe to the newsletter.
Oh, okay.
Okay, everyone doing the same.
Okay.
Click on the link, put your name and your emails in, and that's all you need to do. Dr. Don, put your email in the chat so Drew can send you the link, and you can send to the rest of the paid members.
I did. I sent it to Drew. Before we actually leave, I don't know if Drew minds staying on while I ask a couple other questions that may or may not be related. I have a Nikki. Everybody knows Nikki, or most people know Nikki,
Yes.
as our daughter. She is working at BJ Services, and every day that they go in, and they have a rotating schedule, but every day they go in, they have to fill out a piece of paper with who they've been in contact with since the last time they were in. So if they were at home and they had dinner with their neighbor, they have to write their neighbor's name down. I'm passing that along because if by some chance someone shows up positive, whether it's a patient or an employee, you would like to have a trail to be able to help. We are dealing with infection.
That's what it is.
Teresa, mute yourself.
Sorry.
That's okay. You got a lot of background
Dr.
noise.
Don, her workplace practicing contact tracing.
Yes.
Okay.
And that's on a daily basis. So if your team is still coming in and they went to HEB, they need to document that they went to HEB. Did they wear gloves? Did they wear a mask? Just so that you have a trail. Mainly, it's them, if they saw a patient in the office, I think it's also smart that you have them sign waivers that they're there at their own desire, that it's not something that's being required of them, so that it's like a whole harmless clause for you guys. Just thinking outside of the box. And then when you have a patient that comes in, like today we saw a patient that is a typical dental patient. She's a titty baby. I mean, she claims she was just super, super nervous. Who isn't coming to a dental office? But she requested that a woman, her friend, come in the office and sit in the operatory while she was having work done, and she ended up having to have an extraction. And so when I went in with full gear, I looked at the lady and I said, either you leave and go sit in the waiting room, or you pay to wear all of this gear like I'm wearing. And she said, oh, okay. And she went out in the waiting room. So it's just taking extra steps about who is in the operatory. I get it that a parent might have to be in the operatory, but anything you can think of, I'm hoping that you guys will share those in the thread on your Facebook page.
Okay. Dr. Don, I have a question for Drew. I actually have a lot of members and clients actually asking about the SBA loan, Drew.
Yeah.
Have anyone asking you about applying for that because they get a lot of credit right now?
Yeah, fantastic question. So we're waiting to see what the outcome of the CARES Act is before we make any determination on whether it makes sense to move forward in the SBA loans or not. So dentists may or may not have the ability to exhaust conventional loans before they go the SBA route for emergency loans yet. And if the CARES Act loosens credit lending guidelines, there may be more banks that are typically acceptable to dentists specifically first to be able to exhaust and exercise before the SBA route.
Okay.
So
So
we'll
do
see
you
later
recommend
we'll
to
see
wait?
later this week. Yeah.
Wait. Okay. So don't apply for SBA loan right now.
No, I wouldn't. I would
Okay,
wait.
that's important because I've seen people apply left and right, and it's like take 3-4 hours for them to complete because the system is so back up.
Yep.
Okay, so
No, I
don't
would wait
apply,
for that.
just wait for the update. So that's why another reason everyone just sign up for the update. The email is super clear, like tell you what to do and what not to do. And then another thing I know Drew mentioned with me before is do not contribute to your 401k, your IRA right now.
Yeah, I mean, I think that comes down to whether or not you have excess cash available to be able to do so. So if you have excess cash, if you're sitting on a bunch of cash and you have the ability to get through the next 30 to 60 to 90 days with just significant cash on hand and then some, the market's on sale right now. I mean, we got a 30% down market, right? I mean, it's Kmart, the blue light is on. And so ultimately, you're going to see some pretty good gains of dollars that you put in there. We have a handful of clients that are putting significant amounts of cash in the market that they were sitting on otherwise. But the average dentist probably, makes more sense to hold on to it. If you've got a significant amount of capital that you're sitting on, then maybe it makes sense. Totally 100% a case-by-case basis. And I encourage you to think about what makes sense and what doesn't.
So Drew, I know not many people on here understand profit first, and I know your clients are in love with that method. And then that's another reason why they almost like recession proof, because they know their profit is secure and they have a lot of reserve. And so can you share with everyone how after this pandemic, and the lesson learned from this is we need to have emergency fund for the practice, right? The cash flow before we pay everyone else.
Yeah.
How much do you recommend us to having that reserve fund and not touching it and not playing with it and not investing it?
So fantastic question. So ultimately, in a perfect world, if you can have 90 days of cash on hand in physical cash, and then a 90-day access to a line of credit, that's going to be best for everybody. And so what we typically do with our clients is that we put 90 days of cash into a corporate kind of investment account of some kind. Think of it like a mutual fund, if you will, for your corporation. It gets a small return, 3 to 4% a year. I mean, it's not going to make you rich, right? You're not going to retire on it, but it's liquid and you're able to access it. And then also have access to a line of credit for another 90 days. So if the world shuts down, then we've got at least 180 days of capital available.
Yeah, it's a lesson learned for a lot of dentists because I have friends that pay down equipment loan, pay down practice loan, and then they wish they didn't do that because now they cash flow poor.
Correct, because they have no cash on hand. They have nothing they have to defer, but they have no cash on hand in order to pay the rent, which it's hit or miss whether landlords are letting you defer or not. And so if your landlord will not let you defer, consider extending your loan. Say, hey, you give me 3 months of free rent or 5 months of free rent, I'll extend my loan for an extra year, right? Maybe that, something like that, get creative from there. So.
Awesome. Awesome. Any other questions about that? And I know if you're not familiar with Profit First, you don't have to master it, because if you work with Drew and his firm, they walk you through it. And I know Cammie read the book. And if you read the book and you'd be like, why don't we do this from day one? Why don't they teach us in dental school? Because most of dentists are not business owner, and we didn't have MBAs or financial training on that. And a lot of time we just focus on clinical. But in this time, definitely those business skill and knowledge really going to save you a lot of money.
Yeah, no, and don't feel alone in that. I mean, we only work with dentists nationwide, and so ultimately it comes down to most dental offices, or most dentists, excuse me, they have 1 hour of business, business classes in their entire dental school, and so don't feel bad. So.
If nobody have questions, I would like to thank Drew again, and I'll make sure that Dr. Dawn, she messaged you her email. Please send your contact information, send the link that you share with us, send the link for the appointment. We would like to share that with the group, and I really appreciate you, coming to Zoom meetings in such a short notice. I contact you over the weekends, and I know you're with family, and I really appreciate your time today.
And Katie, we
Yes.
want to make sure that all you members know that tomorrow night we will have one on ozone.
Yeah.
Our short-term goal right now, until we can get something else set up, is that every evening we hope to have something like this, which is very educational. These will not have CE, but we're working on ones that will have CE for you. That if you have an ozone generator, or you don't have one, and you want to get in touch with one, we can help you tomorrow night. So
Okay.
again, same time, same bat channel at 6 o'clock tomorrow night. And then on Wednesday night, we have Dr. Levy, who will be
Yes.
talking to us about vitamin C. So
Okay.
members benefit. You guys hang in there together and we'll make it through.
Awesome.
Quick question, who's Dr. Levy? What's Dr. Levy's first name?
Thomas Levy.
Different Levy. That's
He
right.
is,
We introduced you, Drew, to this biological dentist.
oh yeah, is amazing. He's an MD that's written several books on vitamin
cool.
C.
Okay, cool.
He just makes sure it's not his clients.
Yeah, that's exactly. We have a client, Dr. Levy, and that's why I was curious. That was,
Oh, okay.
if it happened to be the same doctor. So.
Thank you
It's
guys
not
so
an
much.
often, so.
I would love feedback. If you could email me and just let me know how this worked for you and whether this would be of benefit over the next, say, 60 to 90 days.
Awesome. Thank you again, Drew. Have a good night, everyone.
Have a great night, y'all.
We'll see you tomorrow night.
Not me, but everybody else.
Yes.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Dr. Dawn. Thank you, Katie.
You're welcome.
Okay, so meeting for all.